Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be back here at World Policy Conference to share with you our perspective on the Brics expansion, and its impact on the world order. I'm being joined by an outstanding panel, which I'll be introducing in detail in a few minutes, after having had the possibility to frame the discussion we will have over the next hour. We want to talk about the implications of the Brics expansion for the future global order. And the question is Brics a new reality? Is it a myth? How will it impact businesses around the world? Well, for those people who were doubting about the impact of Brics, I think this picture says it all. The Brics meeting 6 weeks ago in Kazan, bringing together the 5 original Brics countries, plus the 4 new additions, showing the world that in 2024, 9 leading economies of the world meet in Russia and define the future of their economies, potentially together. When we talk to CEOs, executive committees, and boards around the world, many topics are on the corporate agenda, and especially the impact that they have on the development of economies. There is the shift of trade to Asia. There's the question around China deceleration. There is the impact of the ultimate election year, given that 2024 was the year where 73 countries had elections. There's a question around the impact of conflicts in the Middle East, of conflicts in Ukraine on business. There is, of course, the whole question around the geopolitics of AI and the control of countries over AI. There is the rise of green industrial policies. Of course, the challenges of a demographic devolution and fast aging societies, and there is the competition for talent, where, by the way, our host country is very successful in attracting and retaining top talent. But you see also one of these 9 forces that are shaping global business landscape is the Brics expansion. And that's the reason why we want to talk about this today. Well, if you look at the overall geopolitics and the overall geopolitics of global alliances, you see that Brics is actually a very interesting addition to the big global alliances in the world. And it is actually an interesting counterpart to G7. If you look at the huge amount of population, the impact on GDP, and also trade, Brics is an important entity going forward, which is, of course, also straddling the G20 world. Now, the 9 official Brics countries, and we all know that the position of Saudi Arabia is still open after its invitation, has an impact on different areas. Brics will have impact on, from our side, 5 areas. 5 areas that are critical for corporations. First, energy. Second, trade. Third, infrastructure and development. Fourth, the monetary policy. And last but not least, the technological cooperation. So let me deep dive on 2 of these 5 areas. The first one is energy. If you look at the volume of oil and gas that the Brics, the expanded Brics, plus Saudi Arabia, plus the countries that would like to join the BRICS control, we see that this group is controlling the large majority of the world's oil and a good portion of the world's gas production. What is also interesting is when you look at where do the BRICS countries get their energy from, you see on the right-hand side of this chart that the large majority is actually an intra-BRIC trade of energy. So what this chart shows you is that actually the BRICS, the expanded BRICS, and potential new countries joining the BRICS are creating an own sphere of energy market, independent of other players. So that's one deep dive I wanted to share with you. The second deep dive I wanted to share with you is trade. This picture shows on the left-hand side the export, on the right-hand side the import. And it shows how many percentage of the exports of these 9 countries go to their fellow BRICS countries. And on the right-hand side, it shows you how much of the imports is coming from the fellow BRICS countries. And this is a picture that compares 2003 to 2023. And you see that in 20 years difference, for many countries, the share of intra-BRICS trade has grown between 10 to 20 percentage points. So again, an element where we personally think that it is important for corporations to understand the impact that BRICS will have on their trading patterns. Let me conclude with the last slide to frame our discussions. And we were asked here to have a business perspective. So we see that there are implications for companies in this new BRICS world. And I think it's actually implications for companies that are BRICS-based, but also companies that are non-BRICS-based. And it starts with the fact of developing a BRICS-specific go-to-market strategy. How do you approach these countries? I think we've seen it here, and we see it here around. BRICS is a concentration of countries with massive infrastructure investments. And the question is, how can you tap into the infrastructure boom in these markets? It is also important in a world where we have learned that pandemic, war, and tariff can disrupt overnight trade lanes. BRICS can be a formidable base for resilient supply chains. But, and I think I showed it with my first picture of the summit in Kazan, it's also necessary to navigate the BRICS in the overall environment of also Western sanctions regimes. And last but not least, to be successful in these countries, companies need to develop what we call a geopolitical muscle, i.e. the ability of companies to understand geopolitical shifts, trade developments, and of course also to be able to integrate that in their decision-making, be it for investments or long-term strategies. So with that framing, I'm very happy to join our panel, which I'm introducing now in detail, for a discussion. And we have, I think, a very nice representation here from the BRICS countries, except one country. And the funny thing is, I don't know if we always were joking, Etienne, in the green room, because it's rare that we have 2 Austrians on a panel of 5, so a little neutral country in the middle of Europe. But I'd like to introduce the panel, and so I start with His Excellency Etienne Berthold, the Ambassador of the Republic of Austria here in the UAE. You have been here for 2 years. We just talked about the fascinating dynamic of this region, and before that you have been working at the Chancellery in Vienna. You've been the spokesperson to 3 Austrian chancellors, and I think you have a very broad and comprehensive perspective of the world, so thank you for joining us today. Then I'm happy to introduce Trudy Makaya from South Africa, so the S in the Brics, if I may say so. You have been the Special Economic Advisor to President Ramaphosa from 2018 to 2023. You're now on the board of the Spar Group. I think you have, and we'll talk about later, a very interesting perspective on the Brics from a South African point of view. And of course, I think we look forward to seeing also how you see maybe also other African countries who are joining the Brics. Then starting with the first letter in the Brics, from Brazil, Constanza Negri Biasuti. Constanza, you have been the B20 Sherpa for Brazil, and you're actually heading the trade and international integration of the Federal Association of Brazilian Industry, CNI. And we have been talking already in the preparation about what is actually Brazil's perspective on B20, G20 Brics. And we had this chart before where we saw the different overlaps and non-overlaps. So that plays an important role. And then from China, Yao Chide, you are the Vice Chairman and Secretary General of the Shanghai Development Research Foundation. You have a long history of research on development, on the impact of development in countries, both in the US and in China. And we're very grateful that you made the long trip to join us here as WPC to share that perspective.